Well, thank you all for coming. Now, we're talking about stress tonight, and who has stress in their lives?
Everybody knows.
Yeah. So, when we talk about stress, one of my concerns is that often it seems like it's your problem, and you just need to buck up and deal with the stress more effectively, and you'll be fine. And that's all well and good, except you know what I want to do? I want to start with a story tonight. And this was published in the East County News, April 16th of the year 2000. I'd like to tell you about a man whose life suddenly took a disastrous turn on Monday. He had gone into work but had to sit down because he became faint and weak. Fortunately, he was able to call his daughter-in-law and instruct her to get his wife, even though she did not recognize his voice. When the two arrived at his office, they found this man slumped over his computer, and their worst fears were confirmed as they saw his stooped posture, drooling mouth, and inability to hold his weight on his feet. They immediately called 911, and he was taken by ambulance to the nearest hospital. After an emergency CAT scan, the doctors realized that they would need to have this patient airlifted by helicopter to the main trauma center in Seattle.
Dang.
Yeah. Further testing revealed bleeding into the man's brainstem, and this region is crucial. So this is the area that ponds the medulla. This area is crucial for sustaining life itself, since control of blood pressure, breathing, and heart rate is centered there. In addition, all messages traveling up to the brain for processing and signals from the brain to the body pass through this organ. Well, the results of the stroke that this man suffered are typical for this region. He's unable to speak, has trouble moving his eyes, has an essentially useless left side, cannot breathe on his own, and is having challenges with control of his blood pressure. His recovery was complicated by pneumonia, which contributed to the development of a high fever that suppressed his response. Over a period of several days, his family became increasingly concerned because he had become more and more unresponsive as time went on. However, a glimmer of hope has been shining through this darkness. Having passed the crucial 72-hour benchmark and enjoying the restoration of his normal temperature, his responsiveness has once again returned. Only time will tell the full extent of this man's damage. As you may have guessed, this man was my father. Prayers for his recovery and our family are greatly appreciated. We know the outcome of this stroke rests ultimately in God's hands, but appreciate the medical intervention that allowed his life to continue. As a chiropractor, I'm realizing once again how precious life truly is, and how vital a properly functioning nerve system is for life itself. With each adjustment, as you place your nerve system in my hands, it's a sacred trust that you have entrusted to me, and I will do everything possible to prove worthy of your trust. So at that time that Dad had a stroke, I was writing a column for the paper, and this was what I wrote. And so just as a reminder to all of us, sometimes when things happen in our lives, I can talk about stress to my mom, who's taking care of my dad. Or every time I think about my dad, do you understand there's a heartache and there's a loss, and Dad is not the same, and he won't be the same, right? So we have to take this topic of stress with some delicate things, because for some of us, there are things in our lives that are so stressful, and we can't do anything about them, right? And what do we do with that? How do we deal with those sorts of things? So I don't want to make this conversation just a trite thing, oh, you need to exercise more and eat better, and rah, 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 everything's going to be fine, right? We have to figure out a way to, in the challenges of life, and when there are things that are beyond our control, how do we deal with that in our lives? And so I just wanted to make sure that you understand that I'm not going to go down this pathway today of just, this is not going to be a rah-rah cheer section, but we've got to address what stress is, and we've got to address some misconceptions that I think are out there. So when I say stress, do you think stress is good or bad?
Both.
Okay. And that's what I want you to see very clearly, because you know what, if you talk to your friends, a lot of them will say, oh, stress is bad, and that our goal is to get rid of stress. You understand that that's how a lot of people think? If I just, and I mean, can you imagine there are people who lose relationships, they leave somebody because, oh, you stress me out, so I'm going to get rid of you, because then if I didn't have you in my life, I would be okay, right? Do you understand? I mean, this concept really is devastating. And so I want to say, no, it's not, stress is not good or bad. However, what makes the difference between good stress or bad stress? Yeah, and that's going to be an important part. There's another principle that we'll get to in a minute to make sure I kind of bring that one home. All right. So what would be some examples of good stress?
When a baby comes?
Yes. Okay. Because something that's very joyous, a good event that happens, right? You have a baby. Is that a stressful time? Absolutely. Now, what about taking an examination? do you realize that there is stress? If you're going to take an example, now let's say you want to become a chiropractor, right? We talked about that. If you want to be a chiropractor, you've got to go through some processes. Now, is there going to be some stressful things that you've got to do to fulfill those obligations? Yes. So is it good? It's good, yes, but is it also stressful? Yes, there's some stress associated with it, okay. Just if you're asked to give a talk to someplace, right? Like you're doing this talk today. Is that somewhat stressful? Yes. But is it good? Yes. What would be some examples of bad stress? Or negative stress? What would be some things that are bad?
Someone dying in another state from here.
Yes. That you're almost, you have no control, you can't even get to that, you can't be a part of it, anything like that? Yes.
Losing 4 people
Losing-
in 2 months.
Losing 4 people that you love in 4 months. That would be 2 in 2 months. Yeah.
Okay,
How would you
God
like
bless
that?
you.
Yeah, isn't that, so Audrey, can you imagine the heaviness of her heart right now, right? And it's you just want someone to, reach around and hug you, but you can't, even if someone does that, they can't make the hurt of the loss go away, right? So an example, like today, you've heard about road rage, right? Okay, 'cause did you have this? Okay, so if you're driving in the car and you both are merging into a lane or something like that, can you see that a real negative stress would be if that thing runs out of control and you kind of fight about it and so forth. Now, what happened for me is I was turning left and the other lady was turning left. Now, I was expecting her to stay in that, but she wanted to come where I was planning on, I was thinking so, we got kind of close there, all right. Well, the nice thing today, and I was really happy because I was feeling relaxed at the time, and it was all okay, so it passed, and so it didn't turn into anything ugly, and she, we just, she let me go, and I went ahead, and it was fine. But you can imagine if that other person was somewhat apprehensive or belligerent or something, they would have tried to assert their, and it could turn into a road rage sort of scenario, to ride my bumper, that's all that sort of stuff. Well. But I guess as I've been thinking about so we could talk about different things like that, but what I really think makes a difference between good stress or like positive stress, the things like we talked about, preparing for an exam, and it really crystallizes our thinking. We get more studying done when we know we have an exam the next day than we could have had 2 months to prepare, but you understand how we can really get a lot of studying done when we have to in a short period of time. So that's one of the good things about stress, is it really helps us to shut everything else out and focus on it. But what really makes the difference between good stress and bad stress, in my opinion, is there a refractory period afterwards. And what I mean by that is when something goes on and on and on and on, and there's never a chance for you to rest or recover from it, or you get hit again and you get hit, that's where you never get a chance to kind of regroup a little bit and get your body back.
Together after the first malfunction.
Yes. And that's where we really run into the difficulties. And part of the reasons we'll talk about this later today is your adrenal gland has to respond. You've all known when you get scared, your heart starts to race and get clammy and things. And that's an adrenaline response. Well, your body, when it senses stressful situations or something, it will squirt out those hormones. And if it keeps having to squirt those things out and never gets a chance to replenish itself, that adrenal gland will be chronically suppressed and it won't have any more to give. And some of the other functions supported by the adrenal gland, so that like allergies and those sorts of things, some of those hormones are made in the adrenal gland as well. So people can get sick, they can have all sorts of respiratory problems and things like that. All right. So negative stress. So this unrelenting thing, it leads to things like chronic tension. Like how many of us have some chronic tension in our upper back and neck, right? Now there are lots of factors that can cause that, but when you start compounding a forward head posture, a poor posture like this, and then you start getting in a stressful situation that doesn't have any respite, that you don't have any way of kind of recovering from it, that is a vicious cycle that's very, very difficult to unwind. All right.
It is.
It is, isn't it?
Now, I do it that way.
Yes.
Like that.
Now, chiropractic, and so as you think about, as we go through this talk, I really want each one of you to think about your lives and say, you know what, I have to figure out a way to create space and refractory time for my body so that I don't get overwhelmed by this. Has anyone ever had a point where you thought you were going to die?
From pain? Yeah.
No, not from pain, but where coughing. Okay, and what happened for you?
I just got really, really, really depressed.
And you said, what's the point? That sort of thing. All right.